How's it going?
Okay,
This might have to be our last Wednesday episode because one of my classes does have a lot of homework. So,
that's fine. To to we'll go over some Percy Jackson news stuff, just stuff that's come out in the last, week or so. And then go into some super fun special topics
yes.
that we want to talk about that are just like one is related to Greek mythology at least, but the other one is not, but is related to our real life
Yes.
experience that the internet desperately needs right now, even if they don't want to hear it. But just to start with the Percy Jackson stuff, for news, one thing that I realized I like noticed and then immediately forgot
Yes.
was when the Zoe and and Artemis news was out. One other thing that I was like, what does that mean? But I like just didn't think about it very much. Was there was the pictures that Dior put out from her birthday. There was another
Mhm.
guy in the pictures, and I was like, who are you? Like this random like white dude that looks like
Apollo?
the yeah, like the age of Charlie, like somewhere around that age, like early 20s, not like a
Mhm.
teenager. And some of the like kids in like TikToks and stuff I saw because people are like, who is that? And some people knew who he was. I have no idea how they knew who this guy was.
Mhm.
Because he doesn't have that many like acting credits. He's only been acting for a couple years. His name
Yeah.
is Ollie Atkins, and he was in those pictures. And
Mhm.
I got reminded of it because somebody, I think he just posted some more pictures with like the kids in them from probably around her birthday. And so they were all like
Mhm.
sharing it on their stories and stuff. And I was like, oh, right. Like, who is this person? And it was really funny because I went to his Instagram and I'm not exaggerating. Everybody follows him. And it was really funny to like he only has like a couple thousand followers on Instagram. He doesn't have like a lot. Like I said, he hasn't been acting for too long. But the entire cast plus like some of the crew people, like like one of the main writers and people like that are also following him. Even the new people like Sarah and Daphne and stuff are following him. And I was like, okay, maybe he's somebody in season 3 and everyone just like somehow forgot about this guy or like hasn't speculated at all about who he is.
Yeah.
And so I was like, maybe he's like Dr. Thorne or somebody like that because he seems to be have been around since
Oh, yeah.
the first episode. I'm like, that could be true, but I can't find where I saw this. But somewhere on the internet, one of the like update account kind of accounts or whatever, they were posting about him. They posted like the picture of him with like Charlie and Walker. And they
Mhm.
said somewhere in like the comments or in the description or something that he was listed on IMDb as like a cast member for season 2 because he does live in Canada. He's another person that just lived like if you want to be on the show, get a good enough at acting where you have an agent and then also live in Canada because
Mhm.
almost all of the new people live in Canada except for Daphne, but most of them do live in Canada somehow. But anyway, so they said that, and I was like, you know what? I'll just believe them because every time I try to find anything on IMDb, it just gives me a headache. It doesn't really, it just isn't like exactly organized very well, and I couldn't find it when
Yeah.
I find him anywhere anyway. And like just because somebody posts something on IMDb also doesn't mean anything at all. People I think forget that anyone can add anything on there. And yeah, sometimes it does end up on there when they actually do have roles, but sometimes it's just somebody having fun or like lying or somebody just like a fan or something putting something on there. But either way, they said that he was on there for season 2 and I'm like and I was sitting there thinking I was like who could he be in season 2 if he is in season 2? Cuz it's always possible he like that he could be in season 2 and it's just not anything that they've like made super public yet. The only
Mhm.
person I could think of, if he is somebody in season 2 that isn't like a new character like the other like Sage and Beatrice are playing, is maybe I was like maybe he's Triton or something because he is
Maybe.
kind of the right age and if they have like more scenes of Tyson with Poseidon and stuff, like going down to Poseidon's area and stuff like he does at the end of the book. They could
Mm-hmm.
add those scenes in, and they would never tell us about that like before, because that'd be more fun to just see
Yeah.
it, like how the Poseidon Sally scenes were a complete surprise and were one of the best scenes of season one. I don't want them to tell us about it in advance if that is who he is. But those are like the only options I can think of. Or like
Yeah.
he could be Apollo, I guess, but I don't know why I don't think he's Apollo. He could be. It's mainly just because he seems to have been up there and like with everybody before they got to the time when Apollo would show up, because he probably
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be there until like the very end of the first episode or the beginning of or like the second one. I don't know why I have it in my mind that he would be in the second one. He could just be in the first episode. But those
Well,
are the only
because he
people I
shows
could
up
think
with,
of.
I think yeah, it's hard to say how they'll break that up, right? Because they go to the
Hmm.
dance, and then Annabeth gets taken,
Hmm.
and then the hunters show up, and then they call Apollo to bring them to camp. So that could potentially all be in episode one,
Hmm.
or it could
Yeah,
be
it's
episode one and two.
it's hard to know like where they'll break it up and stuff. Like, if they could end it, I don't think that they could fill an entire episode with it ending with Annabeth being taken. I
Yeah.
feel like I don't think that they would have enough time to like fill in a whole episode of that. And I don't think that they would necessarily want to,
Hmm.
because there's other like because really Bianca joining the hunters and all that kind of stuff, and Thalia being mad at Percy and blaming him for Annabeth being taken kind of sets up a lot of like the overall themes of the season. And so I don't know where they would cut it off. That's why I'm like, I don't know where this would stop necessarily. And we all we know really is that thanks to James Bobin showing us his fun little notebooks, that we know that sometime in episode two is when the capture the flag fight scene happens. And so we
Yeah.
can guess that at the end of the second episode is when Percy like breaks out of camp with Blackjack and leaves. But uh, other than that, who knows?
Yeah, yeah, it's hard to say. Um,
Yeah. So I really don't know. He's somebody, obviously, very obviously. And like all after all of this, he could be somebody else I'm just not thinking of, or he could just be a completely new character.
yeah,
Um,
maybe an unnamed background character too, because like I'm sure that they're nice and hang out with the background
yeah.
characters.
Like I don't. It's not that I like people like Sage Thompson's character is just kind of like a more like background character. She is like a new character because there isn't that like older Athena person in the books and stuff,
Hmm.
but still like he could be somebody like that. But it's also like a thing of like Beatrice was with them. I don't think that I would be surprised if Allison is in Titan's Curse. I mean, I feel weird saying that because we don't know anything about her, but I would
Hmm.
just be surprised if she like continues on in like a big way. Like they just live in Canada. Like they just live there. And so he could be just like some person in season 2 that still just, they hang out with when they're in town, which is often. They're going to be there
Yeah,
for the
well,
next 8 months.
who was that one girl that went to Disneyland with them? It was like something like
Oh yeah,
Danielle Jolene or
Danielle.
something. And we
They
all
were just
thought she
friends
would
with
end
her.
up being somebody. Yeah, and she ended up just being a homie. So yeah, like
Hmm.
I mean,
I always have to
they
feel, we
have
always feel like
friends.
we need to defend like child actors also just have friends. And like
Yes.
he could just be somebody that was on set and that's it. But I just think it's funny that the fandom just like completely forgot about him. And every time somebody posts a picture of him or he does, we're like reminded for 5 seconds. But still I see like nobody like speculating about him at all, which is really funny. I'm like some no one. I've seen like two people say something somewhere and they're like but it doesn't go anywhere. And it's just funny who like everyone decides to speculate on to death and who we just like ignore.
Hmm.
I don't know. The other thing I saw that I forgot to mention before is that Leah is doing a Teen Vogue summit. They're doing, I guess that's a fancy word for convention. When you're like a magazine that's also pretty progressive, they have to have a fancier word than convention for the weekend. I don't know what the difference is, but
Yeah.
she's doing a panel on September 20th in LA, that is about like fandom stuff. I forget the name of the panel. It doesn't really matter. But she's doing a panel about characters and things like that with a couple other actors and stuff that are around her age. And so
Mhm.
that'll be cool for her to get to talk
Yeah.
about anything at all. She doesn't do that much like extra interviews and stuff. I think that the show is like really careful about that with her for obvious reasons. They
Mhm.
don't want to like introduce her to anything else that's bad. And so it's
Yeah.
always nice when she does some interviews herself because most of the other cast has done interviews even on like podcasts and stuff alone, but she hasn't really done that many in the same way. So it'll be cool to see her talk about fandom, especially her experience in it is definitely different than what most people get in a good way and a bad way. Like there are
Mhm.
good things about it too, that makes her experience unique in a good way of
Yeah.
kind of like what she does with the character of Annabeth and everything. Um, but either way, that seems like fun. Teen Vogue is I like them overall. They're very weirdly very progressive, like
Okay.
extremely so. It became I don't know what happened there. In the last couple of years, they just during like the first Trump presidency, they started like reporting on news better than like CNN, and they've just like kept doing it ever since
Mhm.
then, even though they're Teen Vogue. um,
Yeah.
okay, another thing I saw was Rick Riordan was promoting the book tour that we're going on, and
Yes.
we're not going on it.
Yes.
Sorry, wrong word. But he was talking about how on the when he's doing it that he saw all the season 3 sets and he'll be talking about what those look like to people like us that are going to watch him talk. Um, and so that's fun to think about what that could be. I'm like trying to picture what season 3 sets would even look like, and it's hard to picture it because that's another season where they're traveling a lot.
Yeah, I think the one that seems the most intimidating with season three is going to be, of course, the junkyard.
Yeah, I was gonna say the junkyard. I
Hmm.
remember Becky posting about that a while ago, like earlier in the year, talking about it because I'm sure they were working on it then because that's gonna
Hmm.
take a lot of time,
Yeah, a
and they're not
lot.
afraid of doing that. Like they built like a Princess Andromeda set that has like fancy paintings of Kronos eating his children um, on the walls, and they talk about how cool the set is for Clarissa's ship all the time because they built like an entire iron ship, and
Hmm.
it's everyone's favorite set. And so there's probably something that we're not even thinking of that's going to be this super cool looking, intricate set piece or something. Um,
Yeah.
they're obviously not going to actually film at the Hoover Dam, but I wish that they could
Yeah, that'd be so cool.
because it's just funny. It's like they didn't film in St. Louis at the Arch, even though the like volume stage they used at the time made it look more like they were there. Like I've been to St. Louis, so I was like this is weird because I feel like we're in Missouri right now in St. Louis, but I know that they're in Canada. And this is in that this isn't actually it. I almost wish that they like if I was them, I would want to go to all the places I pretended I went to when they
Yeah.
were filming in actual person. Um, I'm trying to think of the other sets, like maybe like recreating to be super meta, to like recreating San Francisco.
Yeah,
Um,
Mount Orthus is going to be a challenge. So, I did a video a while back that I think I posted it to our YouTube too, but it's also on TikTok.
mhm,
And it was me and my brother went and hiked up. I want to say it was the East Trail, but I don't remember for sure.
mhm,
And there there's not a clear spot where the garden could be, but of course the garden is magical and it only appears at sunset, and so
mhm.
like of of course there's not a place, right? And finding a mountain that looked good enough to kick Luke off of, I mean, I don't think there was enough rocks in my opinion in any of the spots I saw. But I don't know. I'll probably do Mount Tam at some point again too. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
I
that would
love
be an
Mount TM.
interesting one. Yeah, because like they're gonna have to combine a real life site with that like fictional Hesperides garden.
Yeah, even when they're like by the by the bay in San
Hmm.
Francisco where they have the whole interaction with where Thalia
Marius.
tries to kill Bessie and
Yeah.
all the other stuff that happens there. It's just like a fun, it's like a weird meta feeling. It feels very meta to me in my mind to imagine them recreating San Francisco because I've actually been to San Francisco
Hmm.
and Becky and Rick lived in San Francisco for
Yeah.
many years, so it would be super weird seeing like a set of a place that you actually lived for many years. It'd be like, what's happening here? It's just,
Yeah.
it's like the sets you used to see of like when they used to make sets that looked like New York City, and people would be walking down and then be like, oh, all of this is fake, and you're like, but that's what actual Manhattan looks like. What do you mean it's fake?
Yeah.
So that's the only sets I can think of is that kind of stuff, and however they'll figure out how they'll make like Ladon
Hmm.
and and all that because that'll be complicated. But that's many 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 months away. They have many many months to figure that out because they probably wouldn't film that until the last couple months of the year anyway. I mean filming, which is like February and January, or in like a little bit of March. They have a long time to work on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Other than that, Walker's movie called A Long Way something water, looking at water, something with water, because it the I just remember that the trailer is him being like the teenage like grandson of a crotchety old man that you're supposed to think secretly has a heart of gold. But that movie premiere is sometime this week, I think, and he's obviously not going to be there because he's
Hmm.
being Percy Jackson. But his movie does is having its premiere sometime this week. So I saw people start posting about it, and I did see that it has a limited release this month, which probably means that it's being released in like New York and LA and Chicago and like one other city. I never see any of those things because they don't remember that Milwaukee exists. They just remember
Oh.
that Chicago exists, and then we just get skipped over completely. So wherever that is, if it's in a city where you can actually see it when it's limited on release, if you want to see it in theaters, you're probably going to have to like search for it because it definitely is like a smaller like movie like that. It probably won't have too much like promotion and things like that outside of its Instagram account or something probably.
Probably.
Um, and then let's see. Other than that, New York Comic Con is the next like convention thing, and that's October 9th through the 12th. It's still like about a month away, but that's probably the next actual convention, and they'll actually call it a convention, not a summit. That they'll probably go to. Liam Crawley, who works at Screen Rant now and has interviewed the kids for the last few years, and Rick, and who just interviewed Rick at one of the 20th anniversary things. He has like a press pass and is going to be there. He wasn't at Comic Con for whatever reason, but he said he's going to be at that. And the Seaweed Brain podcast got like a press pass for that convention, which made people think
Okay.
that they would have something there, which they probably will.
Yeah.
I would be surprised if they didn't, just because it's the time that it is like two about almost exactly like 2 months until the new season comes out. So they'll probably, if nothing else, they'll probably have like the Monster Donut installation thing there and some other things like that probably. Because this they like to just announce things at like 8:43 a.m. on a random Wednesday afternoon or whatever. And so they're probably not going to do super big reveals, and I don't know, probably not because even like when they revealed baby Nico,
Hmm.
tiny little baby Nico at Comic-Con, it was like with like a prepared video beforehand and the panel of it or and the trailer obviously, but they likely wouldn't do the same exact sort of thing only a couple months later. So that's just like my educated guess. I don't know. I always like I associate that convention more with like books and That's just from the years that I was in. I liked Star Wars a lot. That for whatever reason, Star Wars or Lucasfilm or whatever, they used to always announce all of their new books at New York Comic Con
Oh, okay.
every year. And so I think it's probably because I forget the name of the company right now that does their books, but I think they're set in like New York City or something. And so they would just do it there every year, and they would only do like books and like comics and stuff and like nothing else. And so I just associate that with it. I'm like, and every time I think about it, I'm like, they can do something else there. That's just the only thing that Star Wars did there, Shannon. They can do something else. They don't have to just announce books just because that's what Lucasfilm did. And I
Yeah.
just keep reminding myself of that, that that's not just a book convention because I just had it associated in my mind that it's just a book convention. It's not. it's an
Yeah.
it's an everything convention. It's just in New York City instead of San Diego like Comic-Con is. Um, and then the last like news thing I saw, I could not find this video again, but I saw it and I know I didn't make it up. Is somebody who read the beginning chapters of the new book, the new Will and Nico book that's coming out
Yeah.
in like a month. At the end of this month, I'm pretty sure. Will and Nico book that's coming out
Yeah.
in like a month. At the end of this month, I'm pretty sure. The one thing they brought up that I thought was interesting was they were talking about how in the beginning chapters, Nico mentioned that kids from gods that were not supposed to be able to have children were like their children were showing up at camp when they are known as like gods that never have kids or
I
are
mean,
known as like
Athena, there's precedent.
yeah, and it was people like people were he didn't say who, you know, the like the thing he didn't like go into detail in the part that they released of like who he meant, so people were speculating that like does Hestia finally have kids at camp because
Yeah.
everybody loves Hestia in Percy Jackson land. She's like the only god that everybody unanimously loves because she's really and like even Percy loves her.
Yeah.
She's the only god that's like really nice to all of the kids and stuff. And so people have always wanted her to have her own cabin at camp and for her to have her own kids just because she's so nice that it would be nice for her to like have that. And the person who made the post was talking about other people in Greek mythology that are known as like goddesses that are always like virgins, basically. And they were somebody who liked a certain god, and they were talking about it. I'm trying
I
to
mean,
remember who they were talking about. I,
the Olympians, of course, are Athena, Artemis, and Hestia, but like, I'm guessing some of the like the lesser goddesses, like maybe the Graces,
I think that person
imagine.
mentioned Eos, Eos. I think that's who they
Okay, that's
said.
Dawn. Yeah.
Okay.
Eos. Yeah.
Yeah, there's somebody who likes that person, and so they were hoping that they were gonna become like a character. And either way, that's
Yeah.
interesting to like imagine why that could possibly be happening. Um, that's just intriguing to figure out. Like I'm just like think working backwards, being like I have no idea. I have no
Yeah.
idea what that book is even about, so I
Yeah,
can't
so
even make like
either
an educated guess.
either children or being represented by children somehow because I mean Artemis technically already has people to fill her cabin.
Hmm.
But they're not necessarily her children, so maybe it could be some sort of loophole like that.
Yeah, the way they put it was like kids of these gods that they thought could never have kids are like showing up at camp and they're not and nobody's really sure like how they're there or like where they came from or how they were born kind of stuff. And
Hmm.
so that could be and I will say just to like remember the only thing I know about the plot of that book or really anybody really besides the people who read the beginning like the preview they showed the only thing that they said so far about that book is the idea that there's that they're like protecting monsters. That like certain
Yeah.
monsters realize that they don't have to do the be bad or like they don't have to like attack demigods if they don't want to. And it, like the cover of the book is Will and Nico and Hazel protecting a monster basically. And and so part of that just like thinking about it out loud, part of me wonders if maybe some of the kids that are showing up at camp that they say they're the kids of demigods, or they're demigods of gods that are never had kids before. Maybe they're just monsters. And
Maybe.
they're lying and saying that they're like these gods' kids because they don't want them to kick them out. Because the general like synopsis of that book was that that they're kind of like refugees, like they don't have anywhere to go. And so people at the different camps are letting them stay, and are helping take care of them because they don't want to hurt anybody. It's the same kind of thing of like them learning about stuff more since Tyson was around, and not wanting
Hmm.
to. They want to have them have a place to stay. And so they could just be lying, and because they think that if they tell them the truth of who they really are, that they would kick them out. Or it could be both. But either way, I was just like, oh right, that is the plot of this book. That could be what it is, and it's just early on, and so they don't realize that they're monsters that just don't have anywhere to go now that they don't want to hurt demigods anymore. Um, okay, but that was the only news I could think of, unless there's something else that you saw or wanted to talk about or whatever.
Not with the
Other news that
children
isn't Percy
monster.
Jackson is J.K. Rowling is being a raging bitch.
Oh yeah.
The only thing I saw of her was I mentioned it in one of our recent episodes. I can't remember what one, but I was talking about how Christopher Columbus, the director of the first two Harry Potter
Yeah.
movies, just did an interview saying how it was sad that, that things ended up this way. And he was saying that the cast is never going to come back to do like a live action version of the last horrendous Cursed Child book that should be like just
Yeah.
forgotten because it's just a terrible work of fiction. But anyway, he just said basically, like, yeah, it's sad that they'll never come back because of her beliefs. And he was saying that he doesn't agree with her beliefs in some other interview, but he wasn't even saying, like, I hate her or she's horrible or whatever. He was just saying, like, yeah, they're never going to come back because of her having these beliefs. It's not going to happen. And
Hmm.
she started, of course, tweeting about him and like vaguely threatening him. Like she
Ugh.
posted something about how her husband was saying that they should like go after him or something, something, something. And I
Oh
was just
gosh.
like, okay. I'm not really, are you an adult? Like, you're
Yeah.
an adult, right? You're older than, you have to be older than me because you're putting out books when I was like, you know, 11. Um, but are you sure you're an adult? Because you're acting like a child,
Yeah.
like a literal child. Like, are you my niece? Are you 2.5 to see somebody not like you because you're trying to eradicate somebody off of the planet, and you're so insecure and immature that you are like, I'm gonna go beat him up. Like that's all you have to say. Like I would think that if you hate any group of person on the planet that badly, that you would have to like at least acknowledge the fact that people who don't agree with you are not gonna like you. But
Yeah.
that's just being rational. So what the fuck? Why am I saying that? They're not rational. Obviously, they're the most irrational people ever. Of course they're going to act like little like victims because people don't like it that they're doing things that are harming innocent people and killing them. Because everything is actually about her.
Yeah.
But either way, I saw people talking about that again. I was like, oh, okay. Has it been like, a couple weeks where everyone was like trying to ignore her for a while that she just had to get everybody's attention again? Before she
Apparently.
puts out another book under a pen name of a man.
Yeah.
Like,
Seriously.
I know that. And the thing that is also extremely annoying about that is that I forgot about this because this is how long it's been since I was like super invested in Harry Potter. Like, just remember, I was one of those edgy Harry Potter fans that was unhappy with it way before she even finished the entire book series. Like I wasn't happy with it when she came out with the fifth book. I love the fifth book, but there was parts of it that I was just like, what is happening with her specifically? And then especially when the sixth one came out, I was like, never mind. this is stupid and it's just going to continue to get stupider. I like gave up on like me enjoying the ending of the story after that book came out because it was just so ridiculous. But
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know. I wasn't like it's been a while since I remembered this stuff, but I saw people saying that September 1st was like a special day in Harry Potter. I'm assuming that's when they started school in the books, but it's been so long since I've read them that I honestly don't remember. Um,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
but there was the thing I'm trying to say is that she definitely coincided her threatening Christopher Columbus's, whatever, to coincide with September 1st because suddenly I started seeing influencers that have no soul, absolutely none, being like, this video is in connection or like in whatever they say when they have a brand deal with Harry Potter. And they were like doing, and they were like ads. And I was just like, you have to like literally not even have a soul. Like it's literally just empty.
Yeah.
If you're going to post a brand deal where you have to like put on the video on TikTok that it's a brand, like you have to do it with everything, but on TikTok it's very obvious because it says paid like whatever on the bottom. And to do that and just sit there and stare at your camera and be like, JK Rowling paid me to make this video and to like not just like spontaneously combust from just like doing that, like, but either way she very clearly planned that with to like push the other Harry Potter stuff that they were doing with that stupid hashtag that TikTok told people to post on that hardly anybody did,
Yeah.
for September 1st, which I guess was like a Harry Potter, like one of those not holidays but fandom kind of days where people would celebrate it, I guess. I saw enough
Mm-hmm.
like ex Harry Potter fans talking about it that I realized it must have been a thing. That was I never
Yeah.
did that, so I don't know.
Yeah, we're both the same where we don't really pay attention to the fictional dates. Because like I mean I do know Harry's a Leo and that he's like July 31st or something like that with birthdays.
Hmm.
But and the books always start at his birthday, so school can't be that late then. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it is weird like with how fandoms do some of those things are just fun. Like May the 4th is the funniest and also
Yeah.
just fun thing. Like it's just fun. It's fun with the last however many years where brands have like embraced it and go along with it because it's just funny. It's really
Hmm.
funny because actual Star Wars Day is a different day. Because the actual Star Wars Day would be the day that the first movie ever came out in theaters, which was May 21st, I'm pretty sure. But
Hmm.
then everyone started making the pun of May the 4th so much on social media that it just became Star Wars Day and nobody cares about May 21st anymore. And I would rather do May the 4th and like and Revenge of the 5th.
Yeah.
That is way
Yes.
more fun. Where Star Wars itself puts out a bunch of stuff, like announces a bunch of stuff and all that kind of thing on those days on purpose too. And I'm like, yeah, that's way more fun. But I don't know. It's especially with Percy Jackson stuff. It feels really weird to like celebrate. I understand like why people like celebrating his birthday in some way to feel like connected to the story. But it also just feels weird celebrating it because after we read The Last Olympian
Oh
again,
yeah.
because a ton of just horrendous shit happens on his birthday. And that's one of those things that people always make videos about that, like, he probably never liked his birthday. And he probably didn't like his birthday that much anyway because of trauma. But he definitely didn't like it after that because it just would remind him of all this stuff. And so it is, of course, like a mixed bag when it comes to that. But I understand why people like just having an excuse to do something fun like that. And his
Yeah.
birthday is really the only thing like that in in the Percy Jackson books where you could try to do something like that. I can't think of like there isn't really things like that for Lord of the Rings either. Just thinking of the different fandoms that I like. Um,
Hmm.
does Avatar: Last Airbender have something like that? I don't think so.
I don't think so. And Gilmore Girls, I think people just start watching it in the fall. Like I saw a bunch of people started their rewatch on September 1st.
Oh
So,
yeah, yeah.
like there's that is a lot of people's comfort show, so they'll
Hmm.
do it to feel those cozy fall vibes.
This is like
Um,
very unofficial, but I always associate Christmas with Lord of the Rings, and I'm not the
oh,
only
interesting.
one. And it's
Hmm.
partly because they talk about food, and a lot of
Yeah.
people who do like rewatches of all the movies, they do a whole thing where they make a bunch of food. There's a lot of Lord of the Rings like cookbooks and stuff. There's a Percy Jackson one too, but there's a lot
Hmm.
of Lord of the Rings ones out there with fun recipes that people do for all the different snacks and stuff that Pippin talks about constantly. And
Hmm.
so you could do that. I think people my age also do it because when the Lord of the Rings movies were coming out in theaters, they always came out in December, right around Christmas time.
Yeah.
They always came out the week before Christmas, for those like 3 years in a row. And so I just associate watching it at Christmas time, when I would, even the years when it was over, I would go home and like see my high school friends and we would watch all of the movies again when we were home for like winter break and stuff. And so every Christmas time, I just want to like watch it and cry because
Hmm.
it's Lord of the Rings. Of course, you're going to cry, uh, especially if you're me. Um, I don't understand how people can watch those movies and not cry, but considering how good they are and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, and I know that's just what people do. Everyone just kind of, especially around like Thanksgiving and stuff, is usually when people want to start doing Lord of the Rings marathons and make a bunch of food to watch all of the extended editions with, because I have not watched the normal version of the movie since the extended editions came out, and like the first one came out I think in like 2001 or
Hmm.
2002. I was like, what is the point of watching the normal version when I could just watch the extended version? Why
Yeah,
would
I don't
I?
think William's seen the normal version.
I remember what like the added scenes are because I still remember the original version because there was like a year before the extended first extended edition came out, and I watched it the normal version about 47 billion times
Hmm.
on like a on like my DVD player that I saved up from with my first job ever, back when DVD players were like over $100 because there's new
Yeah.
technology,
Oh my
and would
gosh,
watch them
yeah.
on this little TV that my mom bought for me for one of my birthdays in my room. Um, I had that TV until like 2008 or something. Um, okay, now the that's all I can say about that. I hate J.K. Rowling and I hope that she loses access to the internet.
Yeah, that would be nice if
That's all
someone
I can
could
really
work
say
on
about that.
that.
Oh my goodness. Okay, and to move on, we had two other topics. I don't know which one you want to do first.
I mean, one segues into the other for me. So, the first one being there was a creator, and I'm not going to name names. I'll be nice, especially for the reason they had to drop out of classical studies. But
Mm-hmm.
like there was a creator that someone decided to sick her on Shannon at some point over being a Medusa fan. And with that, she made this like 10-minute long video. I didn't even watch it. Like Shannon ended up sending me clips because she knew I was like, I'm not gonna sit there and watch you insult my friend when it's not even true. So like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, to like I'll say like what I said because I was scrolling through my videos around that time trying to find another
Hmm.
one, and I found that one that I made. The sound like got muted, so her followers must have reported it, and they didn't take it down, and so the sound just got deleted. So I just deleted it,
Yeah.
because there was no like music for it to get deleted. It was just me talking. But the original video was, I don't know. I posted some Medusa video and somebody left a comment being like, "Oh, this isn't, Greek mythology. It's Roman mythology." And the thing I said in the video was like, "I don't understand why people on the internet don't think that Rick Riordan knows this." I was like,
Hmm.
"Why don't you think that he knows this? Like, this is his entire job for like 20 years. He went to school to do this. He taught like Greek mythology for middle school kids. Like, why is it that if you are just like a normal teenager that likes Greek mythology, and so you know this thing about Medusa, that you don't consider that he also would know that? And so if he adapts her the way that he does on his show, that there's another reason for why he wants to show it that way, instead of the like knee jerk reaction of like the way that they respond with the same thing. It's like you're not even thinking about,
Hmm.
you're not thinking about it, about how there could be another option of why, of like why
Yeah.
he wanted to do it that way. And it's like, yeah, just think about it for 5 seconds. Like, do you really think that somebody like him doesn't know this if you know this? Like, obviously he does. Uh and that person was so upset by me
Yeah.
saying that, I guess, that they sent her the video, and then she came by and started leaving a bunch of comments and was doing the thing that a lot of classics people who do that kind of thing do with me, which is where they say that, like, oh, you just don't know about this. Medusa was never a victim, blah, 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 Fields and Poseidon, and just like the same general stuff.
Hmm.
And I was trying to say, like, you're looking at it from this one perspective. And I was trying to say, like, I look at this stuff from different perspectives, and was trying to say, like, you have to look at it from another angle. And Rick Riordan is somebody that looks at it from like the other person instead of like defending the gods. And she
Hmm.
just kept leaving the same comments over and over again, being like, no, but this is just fact. This is the only option. You're just wrong. And I was
Yeah.
trying to tell her, like, I can't be wrong because this is a story. It's all based around how you just interpret it. And somebody can interpret it differently, and it's not like the end of the world. It's not misinformation or something. But she just kept saying the same thing. And so I just deleted her comments because I was like, I'm not having a conversation with somebody that isn't even trying to like really consider what I'm saying. They're just like repeating back what they think at me every time I say anything. And I'm like, you're
Hmm.
it's just like talking at a brick wall. And so after I deleted some of her comments, she 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 blocked me, and then made a 9-minute video about me. And the reason why I know she did that is because some of her followers went over to a video that I made after that, like leaving, being like, oh, she told you. And I was like, okay. So she obviously made a video about me, and that's when I realized that she blocked me. And the first thing she says in the video is like, oh, it's too bad that I can't stitch this girl. And I was like, you can stitch me. You blocked me. I didn't block you. You blocked me. So like, why? That was just weird to start. And so it was like a 9-minute long video of her like hashtag like owning people by definitively proving to herself, I guess, that Medusa could never be a sexual assault victim, and also making like backhanded comments about how Rick Riordan is stupid,
Yeah.
included in the video, and also in her own comments, being like, oh, he didn't get like this certain degree that didn't exist in the 1980s when he was in school. Like, how dare he not get like a master's or a PhD or whatever, or even like a bachelor's, when that kind of stuff didn't wasn't really around anyway. But it was just like stuff like that of saying like, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And the way that she looked at it was like, oh, all of these really misinformed people will just say things, and you have to like look and see what their education is to decide whether they actually know what they're talking about. Like, she made another video defending Madeline Miller, and that was like right
Okay.
after we read Song of Achilles, and I was like, you're defending Madeline Miller and how she adapts Greek mythology, but you have a problem with Rick Riordan?
Yeah.
Like, what? Like, she makes a lot of also like different decisions. I'm fine with people make, like, we always say that I want people to make different decisions. I want them to adapt the stories the way that it fits for them. But it's also like a thing of, if you, how do you not have a problem with Madeline Miller when she changes so many details? If
Yeah.
you have a problem with Rick Riordan, I don't know. I don't know. I just, I'll never understand that. But um recently, like the other day, I just every once in a while I go and like check on the people that bothered us, just to make sure that they're not, because it's a weird feeling that like when somebody blocks you, it's just a weird feeling that you don't know like if they're talking about you. because
Yeah.
people like that sometimes get upset and want to like prove you wrong again. And so I just check on them every once in a while. And I hadn't looked at her in many months and just looked at her account and saw that she had failed out of her program at Oxford and wasn't
Hmm.
even doing like
Classics.
classics anymore. Like she made her whole brand on, and she is part of the thing that made me upset at that girl is that I had seen her before doing similar things with other trauma survivors who had different ideas about Greek mythology that like made more sense to people like us. And so
Yeah.
this was not, I was definitely not the first person. That was like her whole account was people would either send it to her or she would find videos of people saying things that she thought was incorrect about the stories. And it was usually people coming from some sort of like marginalized place, like usually trauma victims that I saw at least,
Hmm.
and telling them that we were wrong for thinking that and that we were just wrong and should stop basically, and that it was like it was this weird thing, like it felt like it was her duty or something
Yeah.
to correct that, like because that was basically what her whole account was. And I was just like, this is like one of the most ironic things that has happened in a while, that somebody like that, like she did that back in May. And that was, I remember when that was because it was right around my niece's birthday when we were like talking about that kind of stuff. Because I remember that I was like watching the
Hmm.
video that you made talking about that whole thing when I was at like the hotel room at my niece's, like where we went for
Oh
the weekend.
yeah.
And then anyway, so it's like 4 months later, and
Hmm.
she's like completely changing her major. She's not even doing classics anymore. And this is like a weird theme that has happened in Mandy and I's life over the last couple months, where it feels like if people like astrology, it feels like
Yeah.
astrology just like happening in action, that we both have a bunch of like Saturn placement things, like Aquarius things, Capricorn things. And
Hmm.
one of the stereotypes about those is just that you don't have to do anything, that people that mistreat you in some way will just have things naturally happen, and you don't have to, you can just like sit back and like trust
Yeah.
that it will just happen. And in the last couple months, we were harassed a lot by the Everything Musical fans, and they now have to try to defend Jorge being an abuser for the rest of their existence. And one of the people that harassed me the most about that, also about Medusa, doesn't even like Epic the Musical anymore. And
Hmm.
now and then a couple months later, this girl that was harassing me about and just being just terrible in general about Greek mythology, but especially about Medusa and other things like that. Like the other person I saw her go after was about like how women were treated during like ancient Greek mythology times, and was like
Yeah.
trying to make it sound like they're treated nicer than they actually were. And I was like, this is just so ridiculous. But anyway, and she is one too that she did all of that stuff, and now 3 or 4 months later she didn't pass her schooling and is having to completely change her path and isn't even doing classics anymore. And
Yeah.
it's just like, I'm not sure how this has happened, but it just did. And it's just an interesting thing to see people do. And this is part of why, like, I don't like, I am like a protective person, obviously, of myself and
Hmm.
people that I care about and stuff online, or just things that I think are important. But there's also like levels to me of
Yeah.
like what you should say and do. And that's why, like, unless somebody really goes in like really hard or says something really mean or won't go away, or like won't, like, there's a certain point where they go over the line, that then I'll be more just like super blunt in like a more mean way and not care that I might be hurting their feelings because they've gone so far that I need to like reel it back in, you know?
Hmm.
This is why, but I don't do that unless it goes a while. Like I didn't
Yeah.
even block most of the people from Epic Musical people that were being
Oh, I
absolutely
did.
horrible to me. One of them blocked me,
Yeah.
um, but I
I
didn't
blocked
block
them
any
or
of.
I downvoted them so they got caught in my filter.
Yeah, well, like I didn't actually do that, and so I just kind of like left it to see how it would go. So it's like it. I just always think of like how people feel when they've done things like that to somebody and now they don't even agree with what they were doing anymore.
Yeah.
Like, that's why you shouldn't just attack somebody online, even if you are sure that you're right, unless it's gotten to a place where it's like super over the line. Because what if you change your mind one day? What if you don't do
Hmm.
it anymore? Like, was it really necessary for that
Exactly.
girl to say that stuff about to me or to the other person she said before us, who was talking about like women in ancient Greek times? Like, was it necessary to like have this system where her followers just go out and be like, you don't know anything because this one creator that they tag in our comments knows more, and has her come in as like some expert that we're supposed to like listen to, because now
Yeah.
all the things that made her an expert, she's not doing it anymore. And so it's like now you've just been really mean to people on the internet for basically nothing, because you didn't like complete the education that you put over literally everything else.
Hmm.
Like, that all you cared about was,
You made it your
you know,
identity.
the white supremacy of it all was just like the degree, and the elitism is the only thing that mattered. Like, that was the basis of her whole argument, was that Rick Riordan couldn't have known something and that Madeline Miller knew something more because she got like a bachelor's or something like that, or a master's, one of those,
Hmm.
in like Shakespeare, along with another degree in like Greek mythology. And so to her, because she had multiple degrees, that her books were better than Rick's because she had more money that she could spend on school and was more elitist. But like Rick is like a normal person who grew up with teachers as parents. He definitely didn't have any money.
Yeah.
And so, and he also was one that didn't, I don't think he wanted to spend a lot of time in school. Like, Becky and him were already married by the time they graduated. Like, I think they wanted to just do school so that they could get a job and then go do what he actually wanted to do, which was teach kids. Because that's
Hmm.
what he did immediately. He got his certificate he could get for Greek mythology along with his teaching degree, and then started becoming a teacher. But it's just the general idea that that person thought that he knew less because he didn't have a super elitist degree next to his name. But like, she's not going to have that one either anymore. And so it's like,
Yeah.
I feel like I don't feel bad bringing that kind of stuff up or talking about how she failed out of school, because that is the only thing that she based her entire argument around, was just about the that a certain degree meant you had a certain amount of intelligence. And that's just not true. Like,
Yeah.
education is really hard for people if you're disabled in any way. It's so hard to go to school when you have anything else going on but like a normal kind of brain.
Yeah,
Even if
or
I
you
had
have someone
money.
to help you. Yeah, like money wise, it takes up so much time. I mean, look at me embroidering because this is due tomorrow
Yeah.
during our podcast.
Well, even so,
Um,
like, even if I
yeah.
had money, I don't think that I would have wanted. I always say this, but, and this is definitely like a autistic thing, that a lot of autistic people, we like learning things, but we don't want
Hmm.
to do it in the course necessarily of like an organized degree. If I had money where I could just take classes at school to just learn about things, like,
Hmm.
actually, that's what Rick Riordan does. Like, he just like learns
Yeah.
things. He learned how to speak Spanish. He's learning how to speak Italian. He was taking a bunch of classes in marine biology. He just likes learning new things and just likes always having like stuff to do. And I would, if I had money like that, I would do that too. But I don't want to do it to get like a degree or something. I just want to do it just because I like knowing new things and I'm just like curious about it.
Yeah.
And so I want someone to teach me about it and then I can move on with my life. Now that I had this knowledge, but I don't want to do necessarily anything with it. But I know you wanted to talk about it from a Greek mythology angle
Well,
of
a
kind of
Greek
that approach, I guess.
philosophy angle more than mythology. So, with Greek philosophy, and this is something like I'm gonna go off memory here, so if I get something wrong, like don't hate me for it, but like with Greek philosophy, of course, Plato is kind of the biggest name. And Plato wrote a series of dialogues that were his teacher Socrates talking to people and trying to basically dismantle their arguments for things. One of the dialogues that he wrote was called The Apology, and it was basically Socrates' defense of himself before he got executed.
Hmm.
He was put on trial for corrupting the youth, and one of the arguments that he made while he was defending himself was a lot of people hate me because of this thing that I did because of the Oracle of Delphi. Now, apparently, one of his childhood friends had asked the Oracle of Delphi, "Is there anybody smarter than Socrates?" And he said, or the Oracle said no. And the Oracle only says true things, but Socrates was like, "No, there's no way that's true. I don't know everything. There's no way I could be the wisest man." And so he started seeking out people and he started like testing them
Hmm.
to see, like anyone who had the reputation of being super wise, he started testing them. And he's like, "That's why a bunch of people hate me, is because I went out there and I dismantled all of their arguments." And it's kind of funny, like I've joked before that my husband does this. Even though he hates philosophy, like he ended up dropping a
Hmm.
one philosophy class he had to take in college. Um, but the way that Socrates tends to dismantle people's arguments is just by asking questions. Like, literally, he'll just ask them questions about what they said, and then they have to explain it, and they can't explain it. And, like,
Hmm.
that's the beauty of what he does. Um, so,
Is Socrates the first autistic person on record?
maybe,
Because that's
maybe,
what we're like. Because that's why people. This is something that I've learned from being on TikTok the last couple years, and like being autistic and being on TikTok is just like you run into people that are autistic that have like advanced degrees that explain things about why people misunderstand us. And one of those things was that people think that we're arguing when we're just talking and asking a lot of questions. And
yep,
when you're neurotypical, when you ask questions, they see that as like you're challenging them in some way or like you don't believe them or something. And so they get upset at you. That always confused me because I'm like, I just want to know why you think this and why you believe this. I just want to like think about it some more. And at least for a lot of us, we don't say things out loud until we're sure about what we think because we've thought about it so much by that point before we actually say it to anybody else but our own brains that we know about all these things that people would ask us about because we've thought it through already. And so the idea that like
yeah,
people would think that we're like trying to start an argument or we're like saying that they're stupid or we don't believe them or something because we're asking them questions just like doesn't occur to us. So people think that we're arguing a lot when we're just talking, when we're just having a
yeah,
discussion because that's like the fun of like asking people about the things that they think even if I don't agree just to like understand fully why they think those things.
hmm,
I would have liked philosophy is one of those classes that I never took in college that I think I would
yeah,
have probably liked taking because it's just like fun to think about these different things really deeply to try to figure out why I believe the things that I do. I do that anyway for free.
yeah,
But yeah, that's what that reminded me of. So that's interesting that that feels accurate that people would get mad at him for asking questions and because people I guess don't think that deeply about everything. They just like
yes,
say it and then move on with their lives, which is something I've
yeah.
never done before.
So basically, yeah, the way that he would try to poke into their knowledge is this thing actually true? Do they actually deeply believe it? And if they
Hmm.
deeply believe it, does their logic actually seem sound? Like that's essentially what ends up coming of these discussions. And so with that story of like him going around and asking people like about their knowledge base and then them being so confident that they were super duper wise, and then he'd go back to the oracle and be like, "Okay, so this person," and the oracle would be like, "Nope, not that person."
Hmm.
And eventually, you come to the conclusion that Socrates is so wise because he accepts the fact that he doesn't know everything, because he doesn't try to be overconfident with his knowledge. And this is where I get frustrated with classicists. I had to go into a classical studies type rant first, because literally, like, so many of us end up learning about this oracle, and like our teachers will recite, Socrates was the wisest man because he said he didn't know everything. Like, it is ingrained into our education, some of these things that people fundamentally forget. And so
Mhm.
to act like your version of truth is the highest, most correct without hearing people out, to me, is inherently not in line with the spirit of what we're supposed to be studying.
Mhm.
And I mean, like, we've said this before. Part of the reason why we end up loving Ovid's versions of things, even if they're political, is because, like, um, he actually will write from a victim's perspective a lot of the times, and
Mhm.
he gives them a voice to their suffering at the very least, where other people don't.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
The the thing I wanted to say about that was that's like the thing that is always leads to frustration, I think, in both of us, but just also just arguments happening, that it's frustrating for me when those happen because I'm like, it doesn't have to go this way and I wish that it wouldn't, but
hmm,
it's just the idea that they don't they don't like respect you if you have a
yeah,
different opinion than them. And it's very obvious that they don't because they tell you in ways that where they seem to be like talking down to you when they're doing
yeah,
it. And it just makes me think about how like people sometimes will leave comments on my videos on TikTok or our videos on YouTube or whatever where they don't agree with what we're saying or what I'm arguing or whatever, and I don't need you to agree. I don't expect
hmm,
everyone to agree with me, but it's more the idea of you respect though what I'm saying. I start
yeah,
deleting comments when people aren't even listening to what I'm trying to say and they just keep saying what they think over and over again because I'm like, you're not really listening to me. You might as well not have watched it because you're not really hearing it. That's the times when I delete comments and stuff. And so like recently some people saw a video we made last year of saying that Artemis is kind of grooming these girls that join her in the Percy Jackson universe. And a couple people said like, yeah, I don't agree with, I think that Artemis was more doing it from this idea instead of it being like something, purposefully, manipulative or whatever. And that's fine.
yeah,
Like I don't need everyone to agree, but they respected what I said. They just said like, yeah, I can see why you think that. I just think about it a little bit differently. And it's just
yeah,
you can't do that with them. Like you can't just say like, yeah, I understand that you see Medusa as a survivor because she means something to you or her story echoes things that you've been through before. But I
yeah,
don't think about her that way because I like this other version of the story better because of whatever other themes that you enjoy more. And it's just like it can be like that. But
hmm,
a lot of the time it doesn't end up becoming that, and it just is a really frustrating experience because I want to talk to those people because I think it'd be fun to talk
yeah.
to them about Greek mythology, but you just like, how can you talk to them when they just like immediately just like shut the door in your face in that sort of a way? And it's like, well, I guess I can't unless I have the same rigid opinion as you do, which means that the only people you talk to are the people that agree with you.
Yeah.
And that's just hard.
Yeah. It just leads for a very boring existence. And yeah, so this overconfidence that a lot of them seem to feel, I have so much trouble with it. And I don't know, this to me is like showing the downfall of hubris. It's kind
Hmm.
of funny for me in a sense, like, and I probably shouldn't be thinking it's funny, but I think it's a little bit funny.
It's
And
funny.
yeah, so it falls in line with me because it's almost like you fundamentally don't get why we study humanities. We study humanities to learn about humanity, like, and
Hmm.
not. Sometimes learning about humanity isn't about being right. It isn't about having the correct answers. If you want that, where she is going, where she's headed academically is probably a better place because there's objective right and wrong, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or like math or science. There is truth, that you can look to. When it comes to mythology, when it comes to philosophy, when it comes to these things that we're studying in the ancient world when we're studying it, there's not objective truth. So you have to be open. You have to keep an open mind if this is the field you want to go into.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me that people don't like that. Like they want there to be an objective truth because they want to be the winner, which is just white supremacy. But
Yes.
I think that's interesting because I I don't like things like that because a lot of things like that, like math, I hate math, and I don't really like. I like knowing things about science, but I never liked taking classes about it when I was in school because it
Yeah.
involved math usually. And
Yeah.
that's really why I took every environmental science class at my high school so that I didn't have to do math again. But um, but I don't like that stuff that usually has like only one answer or like one way of going because it just feels scary to me that like what if I don't get the right answer? then then I just there's no other route for me at all. There's just like the one thing and the one path. And so if I don't get it, and I can't figure it out, then I just fail. And so a lot of stuff like that, it was really hard for me when I was in school to try because I would usually get it wrong the first time because I hate math and then I would just like stop trying because I couldn't ever I would try so hard to figure it out and it just never made sense to me. And they only and like it's like there's only a certain amount of ways they can teach the same concepts and none of them made any sense to me. And so I would just keep trying to figure it out different ways and it just never worked. And the reason why I like the more creative things is because you can do whatever you want with it. There is no right answer. And so it feels like safer to me to explore because there is no like one way. Like the way that like for example, we just read the Circe book by Madeline Miller. There's a
Hmm.
lot of characters in that book that have also been adapted in other things. Like Circe's going to be in Percy Jackson. That version of Circe is going to be different from her version of Circe. They both
Yeah.
exist. You can enjoy both of them at the same time. Like Medusa, even in Percy Jackson, also exists with the movie Percy Jackson version of Medusa and
Hmm.
much less like the other versions of Medusa that are in other things. And there isn't like when I say that I love the Percy Jackson version of Medusa, I don't say that she's the only version you can enjoy or the only one that matters now. That's just the one that I personally connected to because of the way that they adapted that character and the focus of what her story was during that episode. That's why I like her, just because it fits with what I've experienced the best, and so I identify the most with it. But like other versions of her, it's fine. Even the ones when she's
Yeah.
still a villain, like or the like books and stuff that I haven't read that people really like that they keep telling me to read, um,
Yeah.
and things like that. It's just even like Perseus in Percy Jackson and versus Perseus in like Stone Cold when he's like a villain, basically in that version of the story, and other things like you can like both of those depictions. You don't have to choose one, and
Hmm.
that's what makes it fun. And it just I always say this with them, but I feel like they suck the fun out of everything by
Yeah.
instead of letting people like explore and be creative and figure out new interesting ways to adapt these characters, they have to like basically be like the Greek mythology police and
Yes.
Roman mythology police for that matter, and in the way that they talk about it and feel like they it's their duty to tell the rest of the internet that they're wrong about things. And it just feels like a sad existence
Yes.
to spend all this time and money and effort learning about these really fun, interesting, like beautiful, like complicated, complex characters and societies and all these other things that instead of like really letting people explore about what they could mean, they have just like such a rigid definition. And if you don't do it, they just like act like you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's like I never expect any of them to agree with me all the time. I just want them to acknowledge that we have a point. Like,
Hmm.
that's it. That I just can, that I'm allowed to talk about this stuff without also having advanced degrees in anything.
Yeah.
But I don't have
Yeah.
any degrees.
I mean, I've said it before, and I know it's controversial, and I'll say it again. Humanities degrees are just certifying that you've read and studied a certain amount. Like,
Hmm.
you don't necessarily need a degree to read. You don't need a degree to study a language. You can do it without that. It's just nobody will be able to verify how much you've done. That's
Yeah.
really the only difference.
Yeah, and to like make the overall point, like, I try not to know too much about Rick and Becky's personal life because it's none of our business. But I will say one things that I do know about them from things that they've brought up before is that neither one of their degrees was just like a straight writing degree or like
Hmm.
creative writing or literary analysis or like an English degree or anything like that. It things like involving that, like they were both involving like creative things, but they don't
Yeah.
have a degree in that. And like you don't need that. You don't
Yeah.
need that in order to be a successful writer. Like, yeah, those things probably help to learn like the basic concepts and ideas of how to be a good writer or how to engage in like literary analysis, media analysis, and things like that. But I
Hmm.
never took like I took like every English class possible at my high school, and I took a bunch of them in college because I'm good at those classes. That's why I took all of them because I knew I would get a good grade in them, and I actually
Yeah.
enjoyed them. Like it didn't feel like homework doing those classes because I actually enjoyed what we were doing. But I also was just good at that stuff from the time when I was a kid. Like I was
Hmm.
like I would so the best example I have for like sometimes you're just good at something and you don't realize that you are because it just comes natural to you, which I'm sure that's what it was like for like Rick and also Becky when they were like kids growing up with that with this kind of stuff with how creative minded they just are in general. Is that when I was in second or third grade, I think it was third grade, but I honestly can't remember. I was like 7 or 8, and we did a whole thing on the Titanic. And this might have been the first time we ever talked about the Titanic in school. And for some reason, I was already like obsessed with it before we did
Yeah.
it because I remember being excited that we did a thing on the Titanic. But part of that class was everybody had to do like a final project about it, and they didn't say like what the project necessarily had to be. You just had to do some big final project that you had to like present in front of the class. So like literally everybody else in my like third grade, I think, classroom did like a like a poster board or whatever about something about the Titanic that they read a bunch of research about that third graders would do and just like
Hmm.
put it up on a board and like presented it to the class. I wrote a short story about what it would be like if my family was on the Titanic. And I
Hmm.
wrote a short story of us on the Titanic and us escaping the Titanic in a lifeboat. And that is
Yeah.
like when they said I was allowed to do that I was allowed to do anything for that final project, that was the first thing that popped in my head. I immediately like wrote it. It wasn't even it was fun for me to write it. It wasn't hard for me to write it. And it didn't occur to me that nobody else would do that until I was the only one that did that. And my teacher was like surprised that I did that and was like, "Oh, that's totally different from everybody else." I was like, "Oh, is this weird? Is this weird?" Everyone at that school really hated me. And
Yeah.
so I knew I was really really different from everyone else, especially at that school. Oh my god, that was the last year I was at that school. Thank God. Um but um but yeah, that was just what I thought. And so I was like 8 and already was like putting myself in a story and knowing like the themes of the story enough to like imagine what my family would be like if we were in it and like putting myself in
Yeah.
the shoes of the people that were on the ship and figuring out what I would feel and what I would think so I could get off of it and figuring out a way and like setting up a story and setting up characters and setting up all those things. Nobody taught me any of that stuff yet because I was 8.
Hmm.
I just did that. It was just like a natural thing for me to do because I just
Yeah.
have always liked doing stuff like that. And so it's like you don't necessarily need like education can help you learn things that you to add on to the skills that you already have. But the idea that it's everything is just not I keep saying it, but it's just white supremacy.
Well, and
Like white
especially
supremacy is
here
all
in
about
America.
like, yeah, it's all about even outside of that, because people talk a lot about how there's so much information about ancient Greece and ancient Rome, and there's none about Persia. Like I just saw a video the other day that I'm pretty sure I reposted on TikTok of
Yeah.
somebody talking about how Persia was bigger than Rome. It lasted for longer, it covered more land, but because it's seen as Middle Eastern, nobody
Hmm.
talks about it because all of the uppity white people in Europe didn't want to do research about it. And there's just as much information about Persia, and there's even more about it when it
Yeah.
comes to like information about their society and stuff than there is about ancient Greece and ancient Rome. But Greek mythology and like Roman mythology and those sort of mythologies and stuff are the ones that are taught in school all the time. I learned some about Persia, but
Yeah.
not the same at all. Like I took a whole history class about that when I was in high school, but that was like the first time that they really went in depth with any of that kind of stuff. And it's always been that it's always been co-opted by people who decided that Greek people would now be seen as white, and started talking about that stuff. And
Hmm.
it's just the idea overall, though, that you have to go to a fancy institution that judges you purely based on your grades and that's it. And that you get this piece of paper from this institution and that magically makes you a better expert than everybody else. Even if there's other people that just like can't get through the barriers of going to a place like that. Like that girl was like, I don't want to talk down about her education at Oxford, but she was very lucky to be able to go to a place like that.
Exactly.
Even in places, even though like England has a way better education system than the US, like college is not the huge like debt machine that it is here. You still have to get like a certain level of grades, and you have to like
Yeah.
really, you have to do a lot of things to prove
It's
that you're
like a
allowed
top
to.
school.
Yeah, it's like a top school. Like you have to get certain grades on your like your A levels. You have to like write like their version of like essays and things like that. You have to do all these things, and they can still tell you no because they think somebody else is just a better option or something. And so the whole reason why she's not in school there anymore is because you had to get a certain grade on like when you presented what you were doing like your studies on, and whatever she got her studies on, she didn't get like the grade, and so that's it. She's just like done. If you don't get that certain grade, if you're doing like a master's, at least in England, you just can't continue with the program anymore. It's not that way in the US. Like from what I know from people who got masters, it's more like you obviously have to, you want to like pass at a certain point, but you can get your
Yeah.
masters for like years, and as long as you have a way to pay for it, you can just keep going forever until you learn enough where you successfully like defend your thesis, and then you get your masters. You don't, it's not like a pass or fail kind of situation like that is. Like I had to look that up when she said that, because we don't really do that with like, a lot of people decide to stop going towards getting their masters or their PhDs because they just want to be done with school and just want to like go out and like live life instead. But they don't like you can't like really fail out the same way like you can when you're getting like your bachelor's and stuff,
Yeah.
but not like the higher degrees
Advanced
after that.
degrees. Yeah.
It's more like because you don't have the money sometimes, or just because you just want to do a job instead of getting stuck just researching something forever that you don't know people will agree with you about and let you
Yeah.
pass. But it's a lot of privilege to be able to go to a school like that and spend years of your life just like researching this subject that you care a lot about. And it feels it like I said, it was funny. And I think that it's funny because a lot of the things that we would bring up were likely the issues that probably happened about why she didn't pass, because they were obviously, we don't know. But when she made that video about like women in Greek mythology, she was like cherry picking things and like absolutely refusing to acknowledge the like very obvious like societal context of things that would make everything that she was saying fall apart, because she wanted a very clear like idea. And so anything that fit that idea, she would bring it up and just purposely just like pretend like this other thing just like wasn't there. Like talking about
Yeah.
like, oh, women weren't subjugated during ancient Greek times because they were allowed to go to like festivals. sometimes, women only festivals sometimes, or women weren't subjugated because they had to take care of children all the time. It was just that they had to be in this separate section of their house so that men could have like their special manly meetings about all of like the war stuff that was going on, or them like doing their jobs and have meetings with people. And they couldn't have meetings with like kids and like babies crying. And it's like, okay, but like the very obvious contextual thing to bring up is, why were men the only ones doing that?
Hmm.
And like, if your job as a woman is to get married and then have kids, and all of that happens in your home, then you never get to leave your house.
Yeah.
And that's like what people were talking about when they talk about that stuff, is that women's entire identity was around that. And so they weren't really allowed to do much more because there weren't a lot of like societal things that you could do. Because if everything that you're responsible for is in your house, you're never going to leave your house. But men
Hmm.
could go and leave and do other things and be other people besides a mother and take care of babies. But it's like she wouldn't talk about any of that stuff. And it's like, you need to go. I felt like all the time talking to her, like, you need to go deeper into like
Yeah.
what you're really trying to say. And it's just, I guess it's frustrating for me as somebody that has been like super poor my whole life. Like, my sister and I sometimes remember things from when we were growing up, and we're just like, oh my fucking God. Like, when my parents got divorced when I was 12, and my dad had to pay child support, but he would also constantly complain about the child support that he had to pay. And he didn't have to pay as much as he was supposed to because he was, scary. And so my mom just wanted him to stop all of their crazy divorce proceedings because he was representing himself,
Oh
because he
God.
refused to pay an attorney, because that's what he's like. And so, or was like. And so she let him only have to pay child support for one kid instead of two, because she just wanted like everything to stop. She just wanted
Yeah.
everything to calm down finally, because it was really crazy when all of that stuff was going on with them getting divorced. He was so mad that she filed for divorce against him, and would just argue about every single thing, as you can imagine somebody like that losing control. And so he hardly gave my mom any money at all. And she was constantly working all these jobs. She worked at the small town grocery store in our hometown. Like, the people who worked there knew us there because my sister and I would just like walk to the store when she was working, and just like be there for hours on end when she was working. So we weren't like home by ourselves. And or we would like call all the time when she was working and talk to her. They like had her work in a separate department where she was the only one that was there, so we could just call her and talk to her whenever we wanted. And
Yeah.
they gave her like a credit so that she could buy food before she got paid, because we never had any food. And when we were in like high school and stuff, we would like run out of food, and we didn't have any money, and she would buy food when she would come home. But we would like sit at home and eat like bags of chocolate chips that were supposed to be used making cookies. And
Yeah.
or like we would find like cheese in the fridge and just like eat it, or we would eat like dry cereal because we ran out of milk. And we lived in a small town where it would be like a 20-minute walk to get to a store, and where my mom worked. And so we couldn't, like, it just didn't make sense to do that. It would be way too far for where we lived to do that kind of thing. And so I remember eating like like putting like butter on tortillas and just
Hmm.
eating it because we ran out of bread and we didn't have peanut butter. And it was literally like we would just try to find anything in our house to eat. Like, I remember once trying to eat walnuts. I hate walnuts. I hate like nuts and like food or whatever. And it was the same kind of thing, like baking supplies that my mom got when she probably wanted to make some of her mom's recipes. And we would
Yeah.
just try to eat it because we didn't have anything else at home. And so remembering that kind of stuff, we're like, we both, me and my sister, when we went to college, we purposely tried to pick degrees that we thought we would get jobs in right away, that had a lot of different jobs. Like, I tried to get a degree in psychology at first before I dropped out. She was
Hmm.
trying to get a business degree at first and then realized that she hated it and switched to doing early education. But the whole reason why she did that is because we both said, like, oh, we can get a job with this. Because we
Hmm.
couldn't justify going to school that we couldn't pay for, and we knew our parents couldn't pay for either. unless we did something that we thought we could get a bunch of jobs in and we wouldn't be stuck like we both ended up being at some point when everything crashed in the world of it
Yeah.
getting having a bunch of student loans and never getting like a job that made good enough money to pay them off. But it's just like the idea of being able to like pick a college because it has like the degree that you really want to do, as opposed to I'm just picking a school that's far enough away from home so I don't have to see my dad anymore, and then
Mhm.
trying to find a degree where I can get a job one day so that because that's why I dropped out when I did, because I was like, I don't want to do psychology anymore. My mom can't afford paying for school, and I definitely can't, but I know that she can't. But she would try, she would do it anyway if I wanted to do it. And I was like, I'm not spending my mom's money going to school if I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to drop
Yeah.
out of school, figure out what I want to do, and just go back and get it and get like an associate's degree and then be done. Because I'm not going to, when you're poor, you're so aware of how much money everything with school is that you're not going to do that unless you're sure that what you're doing is actually going to go somewhere. You don't have time to like figure out what you want to do. And so to like see somebody doing that and have all of this opportunity and then um, seemingly use it just to make other people feel bad that don't have that same like opportunity, um,
Yeah.
it's just frustrating for me because I always wonder, like, I wonder what job I could get that would pay me way better than the job I make now and treat me a lot better than any job I've ever had, um, if I would have been able to like go to school and just get even a bachelor's degree. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. There's so many like things I was interested in. I could have gotten a degree in all of it, but I just couldn't do any of it. And so I'm stuck working at jobs that I absolutely hate. And somebody like that is never going to have to worry about that because even though she didn't finish her degree, she has enough education where she probably can get, she could do something else. Um,
Mhm.
and it's just frustrating because I'm like, I really like all this stuff and I know a lot about it, but people just don't believe me because I don't have some degree or something. And so they
Yeah.
think because I'm just a person talking on the internet that I have to be wrong. And it's like, I know that I know more than you. I just do. Especially when it comes to sexual trauma stuff. Like, you can't beat me about this.
Yeah.
You can get mad at me about it, sure. That happens often, but I know that I'm not wrong about it, so I never back down. That's like why I'm sure that people like that and people like in the epic fandom and stuff got so mad at me because I'm like, I know that I'm right about this. And you can like stomp your feet and scream at me all you want, but I know that I'm right about this. And so you can't
Mhm.
make me change my mind. And they were always so mad about that. I'm like, English, like literary analysis is the one thing in my life that I know that I've been good at since I was a kid. You can't tell me that I'm wrong. You can't tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about and that I'm an idiot. Like any other time people can say that stuff to me and I'll start to like doubt myself. This is the one thing that I would never doubt myself about ever. and and so I think it
Yeah.
makes them mad that they can't get me to like be like, "Oh, I'm sorry. You're right." Like rabid teenager. Like you're right about this. And it's just, so they just start calling me names and then block me and make 9-minute long videos about me instead.
Yeah. Yeah, so I just wanted to talk about that because that's the thing that continues to astound me when we talk about other classicists and them doing stuff like making really, really long unhinged videos just because they don't like that you like Ovid's Medusa. Okay, sure. Um, but the other thing that I
Oh
wanted to
wait,
bring, like,
before we
yeah,
switch from that subject, one last thing I did want to say because I thought of it when you were talking before is that we saw like some people that are Percy Jackson fans get to interview Rick Riordan recently, and one
yes,
of those like questions that if I ever got to talk to him like that, I would want to ask him is like what he thinks about like all of this stuff. Like, why didn't you why didn't you want to like get more degrees? Like, what about like the classics classes you took that like why did you immediately stop doing school as soon as you could and just be a teacher? Like, just what is his experience with that stuff? Like, why didn't he prioritize
yeah,
those things? Just to hear from him, like, how he feels about all of that stuff. because I'm sure that he's gotten stuff from them too. I mean, he had ADHD and dyslexia. I doubt that
Yeah.
school was a super fun time, and he was undiagnosed when he was in school because him and Becky didn't get diagnosed with anything until their kids suddenly had those things, and they were like, "Oh
Yeah.
wait, these are all hereditary," and they started realizing that they do the same things that their kids do, but they didn't know any of that stuff until they were fully adults. Um,
Yes.
and so I'm sure that school was really hard for him in the same way that it was hard for me and it was hard for you. Um,
Yeah.
and so I just honestly wonder like what his outlook is on all the classic stuff after dealing with some of them for the last couple years.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to hear. Um, but yeah, the other thing that this made me think of, like philosophy wise, is another thing that comes from Plato, and I forget which one this actually comes from, but it's called the allegory of the cave. And so Socrates kind of takes somebody on this thought experiment. Suppose people all grew up chained to a cave. Like they couldn't move. All they knew was the cave, the sounds in it, and all they could see were shadows projected onto the cave wall. Um, Suppose a person got free from this. That person, once they get out into the real world, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, the sun, I hate this. And they're going to want to crawl back into, the cave that they came from, back into the
Hmm.
darkness. But if you force them out and you have them out for a very, very long time, then at that point, they're going to get used to the sunlight. And maybe, just maybe, they would grow to enjoy the sunlight. And if they did grow to enjoy the sunlight, they would want to go back to the cave and talk to all of the people who are still chained up and tell them, like, hey, there's this really cool light outside
Hmm.
and we should go see it. And these pictures that we see on the wall aren't everything. Um, but those people, because this person who has now been in the sunlight can't see in his old cave dwelling, would probably be like, okay, but you're blind down here now, so why would we want to go up to the sun? Um,
Hmm.
and the whole thing is kind of just a metaphor for knowledge, in my opinion. It's a metaphor
Hmm.
for like having a very strictly held belief challenged. And a lot of us um, kind of have this same instinct that like the people in the cave do, where it's like, oh, I want to stay where it's comfortable, or I don't want to challenge my beliefs because it's like painful almost in the same way that going and seeing the sun for the first time would be.
Hmm.
Um, and we also find that when we are that person that sees a truth that may be uncomfortable or unfamiliar to other people, that they're not as willing to hear it as us. Um, and so yeah, that just like that was another thing that came up because with the whole Medusa myth, and I've said this before, I'm sure, the uncomfortable truth that people don't want to see about like the retellings and especially more modern feminist retellings where you get into like versions where Medusa may have been a priestess of Athena or something like
Hmm.
that. Um, then they're ignoring the actual people who love that myth. And the people who love that myth are sexual assault survivors of all sorts, but specifically rape survivors. And we know this because they're all getting Medusa tattooed on them.
Hmm. Yeah,
Like
and
they
it's
love it
become,
enough to get tattooed on them.
yeah, to a point that um, is saying that there's like multiple trends that happened during Sexual Assault Awareness Month this year. That was just like,
Hmm.
oh, Medusa visited me when this happened, or when did you get a Medusa tattoo, or it's just like
Hmm.
something that people, when people hear the word Medusa now, they associate it with somebody that's been sexually abused. Like there was a whole trend when I first got on TikTok when I like really learned that this was what this was in 2021 that was just like it was started because a tattoo artist that was a guy that was complaining about being tired of doing Medusa tattoos. and not
Oh
and
gosh.
being sick of doing them because so many people were getting them. And then of course all these other tattoo artists that are men started making like really like caring and like vulnerable sort of empathetic videos of them giving like stories they would tell about like what their tattoo was, and just ask them like, so what made you want to get this, or just let them talk about it. And the other person would like bring up like, or they would ask them kind of things about like, oh, what made you want to get this tattoo, and they would start off being like, oh, my dad or my brother
Hmm.
or whatever. And like, and it just kind of showed them like learning what that really meant and being affected by it. And so like that's what made people become more aware of it, and more abuse
Yeah.
victims started getting it, because it's like, yeah, we like getting tattoos anyway. Like if I had money, I would have so many tattoos right now, because it's a way to like reclaim your body. Like it's not like it's not like a funny coincidence that a lot of rape victims, a lot of just abuse victims, and a lot of disabled people have a lot of tattoos. Because when you feel like your body was like taken from you, one way to feel like you have ownership over it again is by putting something on it that you want to be there. And
Yeah.
so it's like that's a good thing that like people associate Medusa with something that makes them feel like understood, and
Hmm.
it makes Greek mythology stay alive, because it makes people look into that if they don't know what it means, and look into like the story. And it also introduces the idea of interpreting the myths in a different way than is usually told. And so it introduces the creativity and just the expansion of ideas that people who maybe wouldn't think about being interested in, or think that they don't like the original story, that now they feel free to like imagine other characters that could work for them too, depending on what their story is, if it works for them. And maybe that's why they don't like it.
Hmm.
That they don't like the idea of people being like letting more people in.
Yeah.
But I just don't understand any of that, because I've always looked at stuff like, I mean, it is a thing that when you're an abuse victim, you're used to, like, by default, your existence is like disproving things that people believe in the world. And
Hmm.
so there's like the idea of like being able to have a belief and not have anybody challenge it is like just like completely foreign. Like people have challenged me about everything that I can possibly imagine from the time that I was really little. Like people, like
Yeah.
for whatever reason, people just, girls in my classes just hated me from the time that I like went to classes. Like I went when I went to kindergarten, kids, girls in kindergarten would bully me. I can remember it in like kindergarten and
Jeez.
first grade.
Yeah.
Like my mom even told me some stories about stuff that kids like that did, and she would get mad at them and call their parents, and their parents would apologize and stuff like that. But it's just, it was like that since I was little, that people are always challenging like everything to do with me. And so it feels really weird to imagine that there are people that could go so far in their life with believing a certain thing and never have anybody challenge it, where they like fall apart when you do. But that's like where a lot of those different ideas come from, because it's like, yeah, if you have any sort of a marginalized existence in any possible way, then the kind of like, homogenized version of the stories that are out there just aren't gonna do it for you in the
Hmm.
same way. Like that's why like the Percy Jackson fandom is like, oh, every other person is an abuse victim. Like
Yes.
legitimately. I've like never talked to somebody, never talked to somebody in any way, even just people whose videos I see a lot, but I don't even really know them outside of just seeing their videos a lot. They always end up mentioning something about one of their parents that suck. And it's just every time it's one of them,
Yeah.
or both. It's either the mom or the dad. It's usually one or the other. And it's just a matter of time of figuring out which one. um, but
Hmm.
but it's just, that's why there's so many of us, and there's a lot of just people of color in general in like the Percy Jackson fandom, and a lot of trans people, a lot of non-binary people, a lot of just people that are seen as different, who just like, imprinted on these books whenever we read them, because they were written from our perspective, when most of the time, like the this is kind of funny, but the whole thing we make jokes about, that most of the time the main character in the story is not the popular one in fandom. but
Mhm.
Percy is the most popular one for us, and how different
Yeah.
that is. That like the main character and the main ship that is like the canon one is the most popular one. That's usually the least popular one, but it's because it's written like from the perspective of, usually we have to work really hard to find a story that like fits our our story, like our like upbringing, our relationships, our whatever, and we don't have to with this one because it's
Yeah.
Percy. Like I don't have to like watch, like usually for shows I'll watch multiple episodes and then find the one that has the super depressing life that's like mine. And they'll be like, "Oh, you're my favorite character." And it's usually not the main character. It's usually one of like the side characters or whatever, or if it is a main character like Harry Potter, it's just like completely ignored and not really a part of their story. But with
Mhm.
Percy, it's like, oh, it's part of his character, and it's just like consistently part of his character the entire time that he exists. And so like that's why he's everyone's favorite, because he is the person that we identify with, not like random character number 4 that usually fandoms have to attach onto, because the main one never like mirrors our experience. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, because it was written by somebody who was the person that was like outcasted by, in some way, like by just, education, or like the elitist world of getting like, advanced degrees, because he didn't want to. And so he instead wanted to do this. And that's just like
Yeah.
led to this, all of this stuff. That's why we're just like one of the most like diverse kind of groups of people, because that's the kind of people that are going to want to read your story.
Right. Yeah, that's what we have for today. And as I said at the beginning, this is going to be our last Wednesday episode for a little bit. We'll bring them back if there's huge show news. We
Mm-hmm.
do have Percy Jackson, the last Olympian chapters 4, 5, and 6 for Monday that we're going to be reading. So we'll be back on Monday to discuss those chapters and anything that happens in there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I'm trying to think what else before your phone cuts off. And then, like, as always, if anything comes up in the meantime or you guys want to reach us, you can always leave us comments on our TikToks, on our YouTube, and we'd be happy to discuss anything.
Find me on Threads and see what Becky Riordan said to me this time.
Yes. Yeah. Always good
that's
discussions there.
that's my Threads existence somehow. I
Mhm.
don't even know. She responded to one of my posts that I didn't tag her in yesterday, and I was like, "Do you see what I say normally? I don't know if I want you to see everything that I say, because sometimes I'm
Yeah,
telling people to go fuck themselves."
she doesn't follow, but at the same time, I feel
Hmm.
like she looks at the Percy Jackson related like tags and stuff.
Yeah,
And I'm
and
sure
I
that
and
the
I think,
algorithm, because she's responded to us, probably shows.
yeah,
Like,
and I'm like, I don't think, part of me is like, I don't think Disney, people are talking about like going to like the getting invited to the premiere, and I'm like, that would be
mhm.
really fun. But even if we had enough people where they could actually do that, which we don't, I'm like, we are so un-Disney safe.
Yes,
I
pretty
don't think they
much.
would want us to come.
They wouldn't want us. No, not us.
Oh well.
Yeah,
I'll just have like
yeah.
serious discussions about trauma with Becky Riordan instead, because that's the only thing we talk about. And I'm like, what is going on? Everyone else talks to her about fun things, and that's what we end up talking about somehow. Are we just like the most serious people on the internet?
Apparently,
It's so funny. And I'm
you
like,
just
what is
happen to
going
find
on?
each other. It's
And I'm like,
cute
that's
though.
fine. We're both really blunt, so we'll just say what we think anyway. So there's no like miscommunications that way, but it's just hilarious. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I like talking to trauma about like anybody, so I don't
Hmm.
care. It's very easy to talk to her, to me, and maybe because I don't care like that. I don't know.
I don't know, yeah.
Either way, it's really funny.
Fine.
I'm just fine. It's really gonna be fine. Just everybody calm down and take a deep breath.